Thank you for auditing Professor Skye's Record Review, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor while his dog runs frantically away from him. Today I'm going to be reviewing an album by the 1975 called Notes on Conditional Form. Notes on a Conditional Form. We'll get to the title in a second. But something came into my head while I was listening to this album for the first time. And I can't really tell you why. This is not an academic. This is not a particularly intellectual stance. But it's something that came into my head while listening to this album. And I think it's important to explain the experience of listening to this album. For many years, there was a running gag on Saturday Night Live where Kenan Thompson would play this talk show host. And the name of the show was What Up With That? And he would sing this intro song, and he would start to interview somebody, and right as they would start to say something, he would begin singing. And then he'd interrupt the person he was interviewing to sing this song. Ooh, weee. What up with that? What up with that? And keep on going and going and going. What up with that? And then he'd go and he'd interview them. Every single time the next track came on of this album, a little voice in my head, a little Kenan Thompson, was running around in the back just going, what up with that? Or what up with that? Because this might be hyperbole, but I'm not sure, the weirdest album ever made. And it's not weird in the way that Shoo Shoo or Death Grips or John Cale, okay? It's not weird in that way. It's not weird because it's so artistic and experimental and forward-thinking. It's weird because everything is unexpected. This review is not going to sound positive at times, but it is a positive review. I am extremely happy that this album came out. It is very possible, though not probable, that at the end of the year, I will tell you this was actually the greatest album of the year. It's also possible that I'll come back at the end of the year and being like, yeah, I was just confused by it, and it's actually not that great. This is a first listen review show. I'm not going to wait to let my thoughts develop entirely, because I think there's something important to the immediate reaction. Now, I reviewed their last album, and I liked it pretty well. And in that album, I defined their genre, and I called it, Is It Rock? As in the entire time you listen to it, you go, is it rock? And this album is very much an extension of that idea. This is so aggressively genreless that it makes Imagine Dragons sound like AC/DC. They not only go from genre to genre, but it never feels forced. And that's what makes it so bizarre. That's what makes this album so weird, is that it's very clearly a band that is trying to cover, kind of new soul, gospel, folk, new country, rock and roll, electronic dance music, a little bit of reggae in there. But the whole time, and if you look at the credits like I do, you see it's just these four guys. It's just these four guys, I think they're from England, and they're doing everything. And they're producing everything. Again, there's no Jack Antonoff figure sitting in the back. There's no Max Martin figure sitting in the back saying, well, I think you should do an upbeat house number. Oh, Toby. Now I have to edit the video. For people who are new to this channel, this is Toby, and he is one of my dogs and my greatest enemy. He makes me edit my videos. I don't edit them. I don't splice them together, but he just barks at everything. So Toby, now you've been introduced, please stop barking. Okay, so like I said, you get the sense that it's really just these four guys and they're doing everything and there's no producer doing anything, which is what makes all of their decisions feel so much more authentic. They're not trying to weird you out. At least that's not the sense I get. I don't get the sense that they're like, take us seriously, we're gonna do this, we're gonna sound like Radiohead on this song and Luke Bryan on the other, and take us seriously. I don't feel that. It's almost like I can relate to the fact that they must have really dedicated, insanely dedicated fans. I don't think I'll ever become one of them, but I could see getting really into them because of this mysterious quality where it's like, what up with that? What are they doing? Even the length of the album, It's like an hour and 20 minutes. It's over long. There's 22 tracks? Yeah, there's 22 tracks on it. There's probably about 6 great tracks. But even the bad tracks contribute to the overall feeling that this album creates. It's sort of comforting, it's sort of unsettling. It's sort of catchy, it's sort of boring. It's all these things at once. Now let me take a second to talk about the title, to talk about the cover. I mean, here's the cover. I printed it out there for you on my note sheet. And, oh, it's double-sided. I'm trying to save the environment because of Greta. We'll get to that. I mean, the cover is so aggressively boring, right? I mean, who could possibly get into that cover? I mean, there's nothing to see. There's no people on there. It's just words. It looks almost like East German in its design aesthetic. You know, just like utilitarian and ugly. But this is a pop band, right? Like, this is a band that they suggest you listen to if you're listening to the Chainsmokers. If you're listening to Chainsmokers or you're listening to Imagine Dragons, it puts 1975 underneath it. And this is their cover? And let's talk about this title. I mean, the last title was like fun and adventure if you go dating on the internet for the first time and meet somebody online, right? I forget what the actual title is. Feel free to put it in the comments or don't. But this title, as a language teacher, and by the way, I've been getting some interesting hate comments on some of my videos. I don't know how anybody hates me. I don't say anything like mean, but anyways. And one of them was like, this guy is no professor. No, I'm no music critic. I'm definitely a professor. That is definitely my full-time job. I don't call myself a professor because I think I'm smart. I call myself a professor because that's what buys these nice vintage 60s couches for my neighbors. Anyways, conditional form. So that's a linguistic thing. So already I'm in. But a conditional form? So, there's multiple conditional forms, conditional past, conditional future, conditional, I would like, I would have liked. Which conditional form is it? Is this just being sort of intentionally pretentious, or do they have some kind of larger idea? My guess is that if I went on to the 1975 Reddit, that there'd be the long strings of explanations of what it all means. And I love that. Even if I don't like this music enough to engage myself with that personally, to get into it, I love that it exists in this way. Also, it's too bad these guys don't know me, because when I teach the conditional in French, I make a little joke, but it's an important one. When you form the conditional, you have to always have the stem and the ending, right? That's how you conjugate any verb. And the stem that you use for the conditional is the same stem that you use for the future. If it's a regular verb, it's the infinitive. If it's an irregular verb, it's the irregular stem. You then add the endings. And it happens to be that the endings for the conditional are the same endings for the past tense that is known as the imperfect. So I like to say to my students that the conditional is the most poetic grammatical form. It is the imperfect future. And what is a conditional form? What is the conditional except an imperfect future? A future which may or may not happen. That's beautiful, isn't it? I don't know if that's what they were getting at, but that's what I do when I teach language, because I am a language teacher, not a music expert. So all of that put together, you sort of have this bizarre, super poppy, anti-poppy. You know what it is? They're brave. They're courageous. Like, there's something about this where, 4 or 5 times I wanted to turn it off and break my phone because I hated it so much. And then other times, I loved it and I was just getting so into it and I thought it was great. And just over and over again, the reaction that I had was just, what up with that? Is it what up with that or what's up with that? Sometimes if you watch it, he says, what's up with that? I don't know the actual name of the show. But what is up with that? One thing I'll also say is that this is an album that works well on headphones, listening carefully, because the production is brilliant. And I got to give these guys credit. They do the production themselves. This is just some rock band from England, and they are as good at producing music in the modern style, which is to say, integrating computers and vocal effects and sequencers and programs. I couldn't imagine Foghat being able to do this, right? And I guess that's part of what it is to be a rock star now. Like you have to know how to do all this stuff, or you have to pay people to do it. But what happens when you pay people to do it? It becomes boring. It becomes just production line pop. And this is not that. So you can listen to it with headphones up close. But I was playing a board game with my family yesterday, a 2-hour board game, Last Night on Earth, the zombie board game. Not very good. And we had it on the background the whole time, and it was great. And it was funny because it was sort of like we were listening to the radio. Because they switch genres so frequently, because it's so hard to recognize one song from the next, that like it had a variety to it that made it really nice to listen to on repeat 2 or 3 times. I would say that the lack of consistency is the consistency. And in that way, it is their trademark. So can someone's trademark be a lack of a trademark? I think you could say it is. I mean, in film, I'm just going off the top of my head here, but in film, there are certain directors who have trademarks. There's other directors who don't have that many trademarks, like traditional moves, but are just so consistent at making good movies, it's as though that becomes their trademark, their ability to go in between different genres and make great films. I don't know, like Robert Zemeckis, maybe. Okay, so now I'm going to go track by track in my pink Citroën, and I'm going to explain to you every one of the 22 songs. And when it's one of the good ones, I'll let you know. I'm not going to play you a sample, by the way, because there's no point playing you a sample, because every song is so different that you might really like one song and then hate the next. It starts off with a track called The 1975, which was the same track that opened up their last album. I reread the comments to my last video, and it turns out they open up every album with this same little like sound collage, kind of like a raining sound, just sort of, it sounds incidental, but there's some structure. The first, what up with that, is when Greta Thunberg comes on and starts talking about the environment. I also get accused of being a dumb lefty and a libtard and all these things, which is really funny because I try really hard to stay very neutral, both in my teaching and in my videos. I'm a humanist, so I don't like the divisions. But still, I'm happy. Like, I didn't know what to think about this because on the one hand, it's so unbelievably pretentious. It's like such a bloated rock star move, having an environmental like activist appear and talk for 2 straight minutes on your first track of your album. It's like, unless this is like a Midnight Oil, 100% environment album, like how can you justify having this as the opening if the rest of the album is not about the environment? And unless I don't understand this album at all, it's basically not about the environment at all. But at the same time, it's the most I've ever listened to Greta Thunberg. I mean, I get the idea, I agree with her in principle. I applaud her for making change, and I find it deplorable when people attack her. But, I don't actively listen to her. I'm not into it. But here I am, and I'm confronted with it. And so at the same time, I'm like, this is too preachy. And then I'm like, but you know what? It's doing something. So I could go on a whole speech about the nature of engaged artists and how it's important. But I have other videos about that. Then we get to the first real track, People. What up with that? It's like a punk song. It's totally out of place. There's like great guitar. It doesn't fit on the rest of the album even close. There's nothing on the rest of the album that approaches this in any way. If I just played you this, you'd think it is some kind of like new proto-punk band that's making interesting, cool, agitating rock. This is rock and roll. But there's one thing in the credits that I found interesting. There's a credit for programming. So that's maybe the weakness of this band. Maybe their reliance. They're sort of, I often say that all musicians now are just cyborgs, right? They're all just part computer, part human. Maybe the fact that they needed to program this kind of wild rocking song is a weakness. Like maybe they could just let themselves not be pitched and pocketed, not hit all the right notes, not stay in rhythm, and let themselves just kind of, if you're going to start loud and raucous on an album that is not loud and raucous, it would have been better if it was unleashed. But that's just that. And then there's a string interlude. The end for Cars. What up with that? Why is there like a weird string interlude after this super rockin' song? I don't know, but it's nice. And it speaks to, if I'm being unkind, I would call it the ponderous pretension of this album, okay? Starting off with Greta Thunberg and saying, wake up! Because the next song, People, is all about wake up! And then having a string thing. If I'm being unkind, I would say that. If I was being kind, which I'm more inclined to do, I would say that they're creating an atmosphere. They're making sure you never get too comfortable in one space because they're going to be taking you through a lot. Oh, is the conditional form about the environment, like what would happen if we continue on? Is that what it's about? Is the title about the environment? That actually makes sense. The imperfect future that is coming to us with the environment. Okay, I don't know. Maybe that's true. Hey, I do mean this. If you are the 1975 fan, what are your thoughts on the title? Because that's probably, as a language teacher, that's the most interesting thing about this album for me. I'm sorry. So after this, Greta Thunberg, punk top track, string interlude, we then have Frail State of Mind. What up with that? It's like this new style soul song. It's good. I like it. I probably wouldn't have reviewed it if it was the first track on the album, because I'd been like, I'm not really into this style. But the lyrics are nice. They're sweet, like it's all about his frail state of mind. And I like that because singers will often sing about being tortured, or they will sing about wanting to die, or things that are very active. Male singers are very hesitant to show any kind of real vulnerability. Like saying I want to kill myself isn't actually that vulnerable or frail. Like you're like, I'm sad, but I'm still a man of action. I'm going to put a bullet in my brain. But to talk about your frail state of mind is actually admitting weakness. And to that, I give him credit. He quotes The Cure in here. He says, boys don't cry. And then, okay, here's a question. Is this a good lyric or a bad lyric? Boys don't cry. I'm sorry. I always get this way. Sometimes. I always get that way. No, I always get this way sometimes. I don't know. Is that an intentionally bad lyric that's showing that he's so up in his head that he says something as ridiculous and stupid as I always get that way sometimes? Or is it just that rhymes with boys don't cry? Again, put it in the comments. Is that stupid or awesome? But it's a good track. And you're just, because it then has this weird bridge. It's like plucked strings. And then it ends with sort of a new jack swing, early 90s style song. Just bizarre. The next track is Streaming. It's a gentle interlude that leads into The Birthday Party, which is like a very well-produced song. But this is something which I don't like at all. I don't like this song. It's a good song that I don't like. I hear it, and when you put it with the rest of the album, I go, what's up with that? Because it doesn't fit with the rest of it. But it's not a bad song. It reminds me, and they actually remind me quite often, of the sort of gentle pop band of the 90s, Savage Garden, which is sort of an underrated band because they were seen as so cheesy and so poppy, but there's a kind of like handsome weakness to this. And there's even sort of like a modern pop country vibe to this as well. But I hate this song. I hate The Birthday Party. I don't see anything to like about it, except that it's in this album and it's different than the rest, and it's therefore part of the 1975 style. The next track is Yeah, I Know. What's up with that? No segue between these songs, nothing that you could really connect with them, but this is one of the great tracks on the album. I said it's a 22-track album, probably about 5 or 6 that are great. This is it, one of my stamps of the album. Yeah, I know. It's like blippy, electronic, atmospheric. Again, kind of an electronic soul feeling, but with tons of great voice manipulation, 808 boops. This is probably my favorite style that they have on this album. Another comedy thing that came to my mind, there's 3 comedy things in this video. What up with that? Number 2 is Sam Elliott's line from The Big Lebowski. Do you have to use so many cuss words? They swear constantly on this album. I don't really care. It's funny, I guess. But for a pop album, it's another one of these weirdly anti-pop instincts that they seem to have. Because this whole song is this beautiful song, but it's just like S word this and F word that. Okay. Then Because She Goes is the next track, a sort of what's up with that, like a noise rock. It almost reminds me like of Hum or like some grunge music from the 90s, but then there's like auto-tune weirdness singing over it. You seriously need to give yourself the time to listen to this album just to at least observe what's happening, because there's so many things happening. The next track, Jesus Christ 2005, God Bless America. Is this... I don't know. This is another song that I don't like, that I respect. It's like very minimal, so it's like basically just a guitar and singing, a little bit of pedal steel guitar. It seems to be an ironic song about Jesus, an ironic song about America. It seems as though it's maybe a singer, a person who has an ambiguous relationship towards Jesus and America. And it does an interesting thing, which is it sort of puts forth the quite plausible concept that America has sort of co-opted Jesus. If I didn't get hate messages before, that sentence, I think everybody could get mad at me for that sentence. America has co-opted Jesus. I'm not going to continue with it. I'll tell you what. If I get enough requests for it, I'll do a special video in which I explain that concept. It is no insult to America or to Christianity, but I think they're getting at it. And then there's like another singer on there. I think I read it's the FK Twigs person. And there seems to be like themes of homosexual love thrown in there as well. It's very confusing. It's the kind of song that makes you say, and you can say along with me, what's up with that? Roadkill, another kind of poppy rock song. It sort of sounds like Neil Young at the beginning, but then it's so pitched and pocketed and like synced and clean that it sort of sounds more like modern country, but it does a thing that they don't do anywhere else on the album of matching the melody with the guitar. I don't hate it, but it's not great. Me and You Together is the next track, almost an Oasis style song. What's up with that? But it's got a nice droning guitar. Then I think there's something you should know. Now, thematically, this reminds me of my favorite Chainsmokers song, If I'm Being Honest. Or is it just called Honest? I don't know. That's one of the best songs of the decade. Fight me. I love that song. But this is a good example of what makes the 1975 great. Another one of these Stamp's best songs on the album. Because it has like an aggressive and weird breakdown, but the rest of the feeling is kind of mournful. It feels like it's a confession to a lover, but it's not clear exactly what. It's mellow. Unlike the Chainsmokers, there's no huge drop. There's just a great atmosphere they're able to set here. And it has nothing to do with most of the rest of the album. Very bizarre. Next track is Nothing Is Revealed, Everything Is Denied. My family often laughs at the fact that I so consistently claim that Kanye is responsible for everything in the universe. But go ahead, listen to the gospel sounds on this rock track and tell me it's not because Kanye went gospel. You can tell me, I won't believe you. It's because of Kanye. But this track is super weird, though, because he sort of actually does a little bit of rapping. And all of a sudden, this singer who's been totally neutral accent becomes British again. And he even starts using British idioms, like doing in my head. And it kind of reminded me of how Charlie XCX did the same thing in my review last week, where it's like, no accent, but no, I'm talking. It does in my head. Take the piss. I don't really know what that is. Maybe it's just because it's closer to speech, but I think it's actually more that it's trying to feel like British house techno rap style. Tonight, I Wish I Was Your Boy features, I believe, a sample from Just My Imagination, kind of a jazzy breakdown with a faraway sound. Another one of the great Stamp. I'd say Nothing Is Revealed and Tonight are two more great tracks. We're up to 4 great tracks on this album. 4 great tracks that, if they were just that, I would say the album is better and worse at the same time, because I think you need the variety to make the 1975. Speaking of what up with that, if you thought the next thing I was going to say is there's going to be an electronic dance music song with reggae superstar Cuddy Ranks, congratulations. You just won the 1975 bingo. More like the 1975 got a box of matches and wrote genres on them, and then just threw the box on the floor and just picked up matches and said, EDM, reggae. Okay, that That's why I only have notes and not a script. No self-respecting YouTuber would write that in a script. But it came off the top of my head, so don't you like it? Yeah, so that it's another great track. I'm going to put this on there too. We're up to 5 great tracks. 5 great tracks, and by great tracks, I mean things I would listen to on purpose. If You're Too Shy, Then Let Me Know is by far the best track on this album. It is so far the best track on this album because it does everything that the 1975 does well. It goofs around with genre, it's very well produced, it's very catchy, it's very poppy, and there's something inexplicable that you love about it. My wife, Dr. and Mrs. Payne, she heard this song and she's like, why do I love this so much? I'm like, I don't know. Why do I love this song so much? I mean, it's very consciously an 80s style sounding song. What up with that? Why did we go from EDM reggae to a song that sounds like it is almost an 80s parody? It sounds so much like Somebody's Baby by Jackson Browne, another great track. Maybe the best song of the 80s. God damn, I love that song. But it's a complete highlight. It even starts off with this weird sort of vocal part, like an orchestral singing part, and then it ends with this like 80s, you just have to listen to it, like truly listen to that. It is a beautiful recreation of the 80s sound that does so much more than just the simple aping of 80s that we hear every week over and over and over again. It even has an intentionally cheesy sax solo, and the question is that ironic? Is it not? I don't think so. I think they mean it, and it works perfectly. Speaking of irony, earlier on in the album, they had probably the best lyric on the album, at least that I could pick out. It was searching for planes in the sea. That is irony. So it's not irony, but that's a really beautiful image. Like, it's paradoxical. But anyways, it's a great line though, isn't it? Searching for planes in the sea. Right? Because that's what we do. When planes crash, we look for them in the sea. Maybe that is ironic, because it's the opposite of what you expect. I'm sorry, 1975. You guys are my partners in this world of let's talk more about language. Conditional form. So yeah, If You're Too Shy, Let Me Know. It's great. Playing on My Mind, what up with that? Not that great. Kind of a cheesy guitar song again. Although he does talk about divorce, which is nice. Having No Head is very similar to me to I Am Citizen Insane, which is my favorite B-side by Radiohead. It's like a dance track with a faraway feel again, a little bit upbeat, sounds kind of going wee, wee, all at the same time, dreamlike, trance-like, catchy. Stamp. We're up to 6. Wait, is that 6? How many good tracks do we have on here so far? We have what? Frail State of Mind. That's 1. Think There's Something You Should Know. 2. Nothing Was Revealed. 3. Tonight's My Boy. 4. Shiny Collarbone. 5. Things 6. Having No Head. 7. There we go. What Should I Say is another like dance track with distorted voices. I'm going 8. This is the 8th great track. I call it Bon Iver at Ibiza. It has like this weird feeling where there's so much vocal manipulation on here. I don't know what the singer's voice sounds like. I listened to this album probably 3 times in the past 24 hours. I don't think if you played me a sample of this singer, I would be able to tell you what he sounds like. Because so often on this album, it's auto-tuned. It's auto-tuned for convenience, it's auto-tuned for style, or it's just completely distorted and whacked out like on here. But this is just a beautiful song. Again, this is where you have to listen. This is where you have to listen to headphones. There's great bell and voice details. It's great. Another interlude, Bagsy Not in the Net. Cool voice in the background. The next track is Don't Worry. Almost at the end here. It's kind of Bon Iver meets Savage Garden. That's what I would say there too. Again, messing with the voice. And then it ends with the track Guys. I think we want to stick with 8 great tracks on this album. Guys isn't quite there. It reminds me so much of a Don Henley song. In the general, like how Don Henley songs feel. But in specific, the song I Ain't Missing You at All. God damn, I hate Don Henley. You know, there was a time where like you could not escape Don Henley's solo work. It was a dark time. I know COVID is rough, but at least like you don't have to listen to Don Henley, like Boys of Summer. Or All She Wants to Do Is Dance. Or I Ain't Missing You at All. Don Henley is the worst. Anyways, this song reminds me a lot of that. But lyrically, I am going to shower as much praise as I possibly can on the 1975. This is a song about his love for his bandmates, about meeting them being the best thing that ever happened to him. It's a song about masculine love. The world needs that. The 1975, what's up with that? Why are you ending this album with this beautiful expression of love between men? These are legitimate goosebumps. Legitimate goosebumps. I'm not joking, right? I mean, I don't have particularly hairy forearms, but still. Like, that's beautiful. I'm so thankful that whoever these guys are, whoever these weirdos are that's making this weird music, this what up with that music, that they are dedicating this much time to expressing and fostering and building this concept that emotional intimacy between men should exist and must exist. So there you go. Toby, Bo, you want to say goodbye? Bo. Let's see if we can get Bo over here. Oh, here he comes. Yeah. Oh, Bobo. This is my other dog, Bo. He's less problematic, but he's short, so you can't see him. Hey. All right, so there's my review of the 1975. I am curious. I think they have a pretty big fan base. I wonder what my take is like for you. And I like this album. I'm very happy that it exists. And I have no idea what's up with it. So for Bo, Toby, and C. Dot, and if you know what that means, you know where I'm going next. There's the camera.